Okay, so tell us about your Click Asia Summit speech and what were the basic points that you covered and what do you want people to take away from your speech?
Sure. So in our session, what we were trying to show the audience is how content can be used to drive performance marketing. I think a lot of people think that content is just for brand awareness or top of funnel, but it's not something that is an efficient vehicle to drive acquisitions, direct response, and performance marketing. So in the session, what I've showed is a lot of examples of how different brands are leveraging content and leveraging platforms like Outbrain to find interested audience and inspire action directly from a content page. And for a lot of people who are in the performance space, that's really interesting because performance has always been associated with search and programmatic display. And suddenly what we're seeing is the emerging pattern of brands that are leveraging the interest moment and platforms like Outbrain to invite people into a piece of content as inspirational or educational, and immediately from the page try and call to action. And that action might be from purchase all the way to find more information or download an app or register to a newsletter or create a lead.
So you said that performance marketing is content marketing and content marketing is performance marketing.
Correct.
But that's kind of an ideal situation. So in that scenario, where are we right now in terms of performance marketing and content marketing overlapping?
Yeah. So I think that's a very good question because I think for a lot of the brands, they see these as two different paradigms. So we've got the performance team, and we've got the content team. And I think that marketers should start thinking about how they bring those two teams together. So performance marketing is again around search and programmatic display, but they're equally interested to understand how to leverage content. Content marketers historically has been very shy of calling to action from the page or making the content sounds a bit too forward and direct around the product or the service. So it's been almost like oil and water, two different teams that never spoke to one another. But I think that now content marketeers are eager to show how the content they produce is driving business outcomes, and performance marketeers are equally interested to learn how they can leverage content to drive more acquisitions. So all these two schools of thoughts are actually blending together. I think we're going to see much more merging of content and performance teams in the future rather than two separate teams.
So what's the cornerstone of good content in terms of it translating into acquisitions, as you say, and what are the content pieces that work?
I think that we see that across different categories, from e-commerce to B2B to technology, there are multiple journeys that brands can design. I think that when a journey aligns nicely to find the right audience, to give them really inspirational video that leaves them with a strong desire either to learn more. I apologize.
No.
To learn more or to take an action. That's been a good piece of content because it's doing what it's designed to do. An example that I gave is Tourism Ireland, which is again a case study that we have on our website. How a tourism board is taking tourism content, trying to inspire, aiming to inspire people to learn more. So they've got itineraries, they've got photo galleries and videos. But equally, at the bottom of each of those, there's a call to action, and it's basically a lead generation for people who are potentially interested in going to Ireland. So the journey of someone reading online, seeing a piece of content about Ireland, automatically pre-qualifies to people who have a disposition or tendency interested in Ireland to learn more. And from the page itself, you immediately call them to action. I think that's a great example for how content can play a role in performance.
Okay. So as a content producer or a marketer, what can people do to increase their discoverability? Because if you're not discovered, your content is lost. It's no use.
Correct. I mean, obviously, the production of content is a sunk cost. It's a fixed cost. And then the output of this, how far it will go, really depends on how much of your target audience are you reaching. So it's a game of scale of audience, and naturally, across search, across social platforms, and across discovery platforms like Outbrain, you can find interested audience. Different brands have different levels of budgets. Different brands have different preference to when to find people, and I think that what we're seeing in the past 2 years is how discovery, which has been kind of an experiential small space, is now gravitating, and platforms like Outbrain are gravitating to become an important part of the digital mix. I don't see one more important than the other. I think all three are digital moments that, as a marketer, you have to be there to find people who are interested, to find people who are searching, or to find people when they're on a social network.
Okay. So a lot of analytics are based on bounce rate and who comes on what page and leaves what page. But you said a very interesting point about the game begins when the person leaves your page.
Yeah.
Please elaborate on that.
Sure. Just as an interesting anecdote, a bounce rate is a definition of a landing page. So if I came to a landing page from a display or a search result and I didn't take an action, I went back. So clicking the back button is regarded as a bounce. So when you apply the same metric, by the way, to content, so if you designed a piece of content that is, as we described earlier, itineraries in Ireland, you may have discovered that piece of content, you landed on the page, you read all the way through, and then you go back.
Yeah.
Most analytic systems would record that as a bounce because there was no action and there was no subsequent page.
Yeah.
But the page did exactly what it was designed to do. It got you interested in the content, it got you to immerse with the content. You could have spent a minute and a half. So it's important to set the analytics properly and to understand that bounce rate is a metric that might be you need to set the definition of what is a bounce, and we would recommend to set the definition of a bounce to if less than 30 seconds on the page, people spend less than 30 seconds, it's recorded as a bounce. So, but you're right, I mean, even if they left the page and didn't convert, you still found someone who's interested, and that is a very interesting marketing signal. So if someone is interested to learn more about Ireland or considering a trip to Ireland because they're obviously basically raised their hand and said, this looks like an interesting piece of content. So that is a marketing signal, and if they left the page because they were busy or someone called them, or maybe they discovered it on a website, on a mobile, or on the bus, the game doesn't end when they left the page, it just starts. So now you can engage them again with more content through Outbrain, you can engage them again with display marketing across programmatic, social and programmatic display. There are ways to find people again and again in digital and make sure that you take that moment of engagement and drive a momentum across all other channels as well. And without that, I think that you're just missing a big opportunity to use the data that comes with with someone coming to your page.
So is this logic and all of this, your speech, is it valid and applicable only to marketers, or can individuals also use it in some way, not in as big or as commercial a way, but also in their own personal way?
So yeah, I mean, we're a platform that caters for any type of content. So we've got a lot of small bloggers, small medium businesses that have one or two pieces of content and they just want to get visibility for that piece of content. An example that I always like is that we have a client that is designer wallets, and they had an earned piece of media. So someone wrote about their product in a niche magazine. They wanted to drive traffic to that earned piece of media.
Okay.
And the interesting thing is that they got a lot of sales. A lot of people read about it and then searched for the brand and landed on the page. So they're seeing a lot of search traffic coming in to their website and acquisitions. But that search was fueled by actually people learning about the product through Outbrain. So yeah, there's no end. It's not just for the big brands. It's not just for the high-end brands. We have bloggers who publish their content and distribute it through Outbrain with budgets as low as $500 a month. So there's no minimum in that regards.
Okay. So which stage of the funnel would you regard the most important and the most impacted by this sort of merging of performance and content marketing?
Obviously, performance marketing is all about acquisition. So it's either connecting the dots and driving people down the funnel, or it's if they're searching or interested in landing on a piece of content, how do you get an action out of them immediately? If an action happens on the page immediately, it's obviously a bottom of the funnel activity. But there are many clients that decision will not happen on the page, especially if it's a long decision cycle. So, for instance, insurance or financial services or buying a car. When you want to influence someone's decision to buy a car, you need to have multiple touch points. So think about it like building their awareness. There are multiple ways to build their awareness, but you can do that through long form videos and earned media, and that's fine. But then finding them again and moving them down the funnel to teach them more and deepen their awareness with the brand, and move from just awareness into research mode and what's the information that you give them. So content is just another vehicle that sits across different stages of the consumer journey. How you get people to touch those pieces of content through search, through social, through Outbrain, it really doesn't matter. So I see content working across different stages of the consumer decision journey, and it's applied differently to what stage of the journey you are, like getting you aware, or is now time to you're in the moment where you want to buy.
Okay. So what sort of trends do you see emerging, and I'm speaking more in an Asian context, what sort of trends have you seen in the past few days, and what trends will emerge, and what is the advice to ride on these trends?
Yeah, so we're seeing obviously an explosion of mobile content in Asia. For instance, in Australia, last year was the year that for the first time mobile content consumption overtook desktop content consumption. I think that the latest numbers that we've seen is that 41 or 42% of content is being consumed on a mobile device. Interestingly enough, that unlike other countries like Australia or the US, most of it is an Android device. But the most important fact is the fact that it's growing rapidly, and how handsets, the price of handsets is being dropped down, and the mobile networks is faster and available freely. I think that marketeers really need to think about that mobile moment. Mobile advertising has been left to banners that are clearly not as efficient in the mobile moment, and the eyeballs are moving into that ecosystem. And then the question is, how do you capture attention in that mobile ecosystem? And clearly audience are voting that they don't want interruptions, and there's not a lot of room to interrupt on a small screen. So we see brands developing content, developing long form videos, viral videos, and try and engage mobile audience that way. So my advice is to think about your mobile strategy, and also to think about developing assets that is your website mobile optimized. It's simple things like, it's not just a matter of taking the entire page and laying it out in a mobile device, because the image that you might have on desktop is a lot bigger. And even though you can align it to a layout of a mobile phone, it's now much heavier to load on a phone. So your mobile page loads slower. So things like that. Think about how do you build your mobile experience in a really mobile optimized way, not just from a layout standpoint.
So last question, you busted 3 very important myths. So we want you to bust one more bonus myth for our viewers.
Far away.
You tell me, what is the one myth that you think is very rampant and you would like to kind of...
I need to think about that. So what are the myths that we busted? That content is not just for performance. We said channels like Outbrain are not just traffic. And we said it's not over when they leave the page. What's interesting is that a myth that I see time and time again is that people confuse content marketing with written content. And I get this a lot. Like, oh, you guys can promote videos? It's like, of course we can promote videos. We are a very good vehicle to drive long form videos that are not the pre-rolls, not the 50 seconds, 30 second pre-rolls, but when brands develop long form video plays, like they have, by the way, during the last Super Bowl, so there was the 30-second TVC added, but there was also 2-3 minute videos that or a more complete version of this video. They need ways to get it out there, and it's a much more of a pull mechanism than a push mechanism. Pre-roll is push, long form is pull. So I think that a lot of people just don't recognize that platforms like Outbrain are a great vehicle to push videos out there, and they don't see Outbrain as a video platform through that lens. So that's the myth I'd like to bust.
Thank you so much.
Pleasure. No, it was fantastic.